Karibu tena sana, a very good morning to you. This is K24 This Morning. An amazing Wednesday if you ask me. Bright and early, everyone is looking fantastico, and I hope wherever you are, you're having so much fun. My name is Mungalambuvi.
Okay, welcome to the show. Shiko Kaitani is my name.
You know, it's amazing how time flies. You know, we're already in the middle of the week, so we always say on Wednesday, make sure you've done all your important business, because from here, the week usually tends to go downhill. My name is Jeff Moti, but as always, even on a Wednesday, we start things off with the biggest stories of the day. We look at your newspaper review and look at the big stories and how they'll affect you and what it actually leads as far as the newsroom and the news cycle is concerned. Doing that this morning, I'll have Mr. Ken Bosira from the PD, Karibu Sana. Speaker Beauty Salachi will also be joining us shortly as we get to look at the big stories right here on the show. But that's not all. If it's a Wednesday, of course, we jump into interactive and there's so much more.
All right, of course, you know the noisemakers will adorn a new outfit when it gets to that time. So do stand by for that. A lot of trending stories, of course. Some of them you guys have contributed, and we really appreciate that.
Okay, Sasa. Then, of course, we are going to be jumping into our social hour from 8 to 9 a.m. This time around, we're actually talking about the inclusion of people living with disabilities in the workplace. What more needs to be done? And of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about policies, about what the law even says, and what you and I can actually do to make people living with disabilities feel more included.
Okay, that coming up right here. And as always, every single hour at the top of the hour, we make sure we let you know how the traffic situation is looking, because one moment the roads could be great and in 5 minutes it's absolutely hell on that particular road that you're on. So we'd love to get your view as well, wherever you are. A tweet, pick, a video would go a long way. Send it to us at K24 TV. You can get us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and let everybody know which roads to use and more importantly, which ones to avoid. In fact, as always, let's start off there.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
All right, looking at some of your major roads this morning, we're going to kick off with Mombasa Road real quick before we take a look at 2 or 3 other major roads. Okay, so of course, as always, this being 6 a.m., we are not expecting much traffic on our roads, but let's see if we've got anything that we can actually highlight for you and keep in mind as you start your day. As always, we love to look at this particular intersection, which is the Imara Daima station, and of course Embakasi. This is right around the Doshi group of companies, as you can see, City Cabana's intersection. Quite busy, but traffic actually moving from what we can see through our map. Right after General Motors, then you are definitely good to go, because it's green all the way. You can definitely cruise down the highway, and then of course as you get towards Nyayo Stadium roundabout, as always, a culprit, the red lines indicating that traffic has already begun to pick up. But it is good news, okay, right after that, if you're getting into the CBD, because as you can see, making our way down all the way through Nairobi Railway and of course over to the museum roundabout, or at least what used to be the Nairobi Museum roundabout, things are actually looking okay. So you can see it's green all the way. Here is Hotel Boulevard right around there. And so let's see if you are coming down Wayaki Way, what things are looking like for you this morning. We are not expecting anything major to report. As you can see, our map is taking us all the way past Mountain View, and let's start off from Udhiru. You can see, of course, thanks to the construction that's currently underway, a few of the areas are hotspots, the red broken line indicating construction currently underway. So, of course, please be careful. Lots of diversions, by the way, that you may not miss, or rather that you may miss out on. And, of course, we want to ask you to be quite careful as you drive down the highway. So look at that. It's actually green passing Kangemi. The Soko is looking good. Waroko also looking good. Nairobi School also looking good, even as they expand the road at that particular area. I'm also going to place Safaricom, Brookside area, St. Mark's. Everything seems to be quite all right. Nothing major to report there. Taking a look very quickly at what we know as Thika Road, the super highway, started to pick up. So this particular spot, you may have to actually be a little patient, but not to worry once you actually pass the Ruaraka post. But this deep red line indicating traffic has already begun to pick up. Also looking the same. It has pretty much been the same for the past couple of days. Construction currently underway at the Allsops intersection leading into Jogoo Road. And speaking about Jogoo Road, let's take a look at that and Outer Ring Road. Things are looking okay. So for those of you who are from that side, it's a really good time to start heading out because as you can see, the map indicating that all is well on Outer Ring Road, and the same goes for Jogoo Road. However, let's just highlight this particular area at Makadara, Uchumi. You can see the red line indicating traffic has already begun to pick up. So if you are on Jogoo Road, not to worry about, but nothing much to worry about. But of course, as you approach the areas of Maziwa Market, Shauri Moyo, and making your way to City Stadium, traffic does open up and the roads are clear. We're going to ask you to actually be our eyes and our ears on the road. Please let us know if there's any accident or incident that you'd like to report, and we're happy to actually mention it here on our Traffic Watch. Remember, our social media platforms are still the same at K24 TV on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Why don't you even send us a tweet pic if you will, and we'll be happy to post that up. Jeff Mote is ready to take us through the newspaper review.
And a very good morning to you. Of course, it's now time for us to jump into the big stories of the day and look at what the big stories are as we get into Wednesday proper. My panel, of course, fully constituted as always. But before we get there, let's start off with the front pages of each of your dailies, and then from there, get into the big discussions as we do that. Front page of the People Daily. Rotich grilled over Telkom deal as his woes pile up. Former Treasury CS spends 8 hours at Integrity Center. Record statement right there. That's the front story on your People Daily. Moving on to the Standard now. Standard front page. Witness, DCI forced me to accuse Ruto. DPP directed to respond to claims that police forced Samuel Gateri to implicate Deputy President during probe into fake letter on plot to kill the Deputy President. That is the story that the Standard is leading with right there. Move on now to the Daily Nation. Front page of the Daily Nation, tough queries Sonko faces over city tenders. Mr. Sonko arrived at Integrity Center early in the morning and left in the evening, but said he was questioned for 2 hours. The interrogation centered on concerns raised by the Environment Committee about firms that got tenders without proper qualifications. That's a story that you can get in your copy of the Daily Nation. We'll be looking at that as well. Why Mariga could be out of Kibra race. Nomination loser says ticket was issued unfairly. Tutu confirms an appeal has been filed against the ex-footballer. And that's a story that the Star is leading with this morning. And finally, on the front page of the Business Daily, 480 billion shillings price Kenyans are paying for tax breaks. Kerry questions Treasury's generosity to firms and individuals, blaming it for decline in revenue collection as taxman remains behind set targets. That's the issue right there, and we'll be jumping into that as well as we look at the big stories of the day. And from the front pages, we go to our panel this morning. Karibuni sana, gentlemen, ladies. Of course, from my extreme right, we have Mr. Ken Bosiro from the PD, Charles Omanga, Advocate of the High Court, Karibu sana, and Speaker Biti Salachi. Welcome. Thank you. Yet again. Thank you. Karibu sana. As always, we shall start with the front page of the PD. It seems like Henry Rotich back in the crosshairs of the EACC this time round due to his tenure and what was going on as the Telkom deal took place. The EACC talking about the fact that this deal was shrouded in secrecy. Lots of details aren't made public. And apparently there's also the emergence of a third party that's also going to be, a shareholder in this new merger deal that nobody knows about. When it comes to the law, and especially, when it comes to, trading of listed companies, the government had a huge stake in this company as well. What due procedure should have been followed, Bwana Charles?
First of all, thank you very much. In any a deal where the government is interested or the taxpayers' money is to be expended, it is important that the public for that matter be informed through public participation exercise. We've seen so many acquisitions before. We saw what happened when Telkom, between the period of 2006, when it was being acquired by the French company.
Right.
There were a lot of issues that arose. But more importantly, with the new constitution, 2010, the issue of public participation, and because the public has a right to be informed, is it a viable deal? Because the government cannot just really get into a business that would not be viable. So legally, first of all, there should have, the process should have been made open so that the public would have an opportunity to scrutinize and actually to give Treasury a go-ahead to invest in that venture. Right.
And even as you look at that, some issues raised was the fact that the company was valued at around 5.8 billion shillings, but the ESCC is saying at 2014's valuation, according to them, the company was valued at around 50.98 billion shillings. Speaker Elachi.
Well, you know, it's a very...
daylight robbery. According to the ACC's report, that is.
Well, yes. But also, it's a very interesting story because you find that the government owns 40%. This other company owns 60%. They say there's a third party in it. Who we don't know. And sometimes now when it comes to that, even the issue of public participation becomes very difficult because now somebody can ask you, your public participation, is it on your government or to who? So I think from the word go, the way even the process was done, before you even get to the money, we need to ask ourselves, by the time government was remaining with 40% and this other private company taking 60%, what were the issues? Telkom was going down or what? So that it was being bought in so that to sustain it or something. So I think and I believe in all this, and that's why we always say that there are a lot of structures that you need to question. You'll also ask Parliament, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, whether it ever got this report and whether it ever questioned before Telkom was sold to this other company. So for me, it's not just what ESCC is looking at, it's a whole process, and we need to ask ourselves, as Kenyans, do we do all these things for the sake of just doing it in terms of a PR? Because it's like many of the challenges we face, it is us who have created. It's a PR thing we do. We do PR for something, and then when things become tougher is when now we bring out the main issues. Because by the time you were selling Telkom, which had a lot of properties in this country, where are the properties?
That's a question that needs to be answered as well.
Did they take our properties? Did the government remain with the properties? So it's a tough question.
And Bosire, let me bring in on this as well as you compile this particular story, because it's a part of the talking about of interest to investigators is the identity of the new shareholders who will take over Telkom following the claims that a third mysterious company is part of the deal signed on February the 8th and which Kenya's leading telecommunication firm Safaricom has been fighting. What is this that Safaricom knows that no one else knew about this third company? Because that's what everyone is asking.
Yeah, Jeff, I think it's a very interesting thing. It's just like the normal narrative about Kenya's public entities. Every time there is a public farm that is being sold, there is always a shadowy third party somewhere. And that, remember from the Vodafone to all the way now SGR and other things. And then you see the way the companies, the farms are run down to certain levels where they are declared as unviable. One of the problems that has come that all public entities, guys, there were people who are at local interest and decided to take them down so that they could buy them cheaply. And for instance, looking at Telkom, as early as 2006-07, the privatization began. The company was valued very low. And when it was finally sold, the government got very little money. And out of it, like it was supposed to get 2.5 billion shillings, 4.9 billion shillings, and it only got 4.9. So the whole process is what we call theft. It runs through, like Speaker Elijah has just mentioned, where are the properties? Where Telkom was everything else. But you give away these public entities into private hands. And those private hands, the problem, the trick has been, there's always that shadowy thing, farm. or animal that picks all the money on behalf of the public. And this is why we need public participation, like you did mention. But that public participation is also very private. It's a private members club. They will do it. And who is this public that we are talking about? But again, this is a story that can be talked of all through privatization. And how do we manage our public, the disposal of all public companies?
And as we look at it yet again, even if he was at the head of the docket at the time, is Rotich to blame for this as well, Bwana Omanga, as it goes to court? Is it the one, there's a buck stop with him?
The buck stops with him because as a person in charge of our treasury, you should have known better. You should have informed the public that the value of our shares is this much, and did it appreciate, did it depreciate, and more importantly, to remind Kenyans, you can see even the process of acquisition of National Bank of Kenya, the most oldest bank in the country. Now there is a merger that the KCB is taking over National Bank of Kenya at a cost of 6 billion. If you look at even the value of the headquarters of the National Bank of Kenya on Harambee House, that building alone, and the National Bank of Kenya has property across the country. So what Kenyans should start to ask themselves, what is this that always happens when there is any acquisition, merger, the government side always is devalued, you know. And even the parliament has made a recommendation that the merger or the takeover should not take place, should not go on. And those who are interested in this process have rubbished that that's a mere recommendation. Imagine a country where parliament, a parliamentary committee indeed interviewed and interrogated those who are in charge, and even the treasury. Then the treasury decides that that deal is correct and it should go ahead. And look at this one. Out of 4.9 billion, then the government through the treasury only gets 2.5%. Where is this other money?
And Omanga, let me also ask you on this, because some people are asking, then what is the place of the PS in terms of him or her being the chief accounting officer of the said ministry? Should they also bear as much blame to this particular transaction? I
think it is a collective responsibility because there is the PS being the accounting officer. Does not really work in isolation. There must be consultations. The minister, the cabinet secretary must be able to know. They must be able to share. They must be able to consult. And actually even other relevant departmental heads. So this is not anything that starts with the Treasury CS Henry Rotich. But the buck stops with him together with his officers. Like the PS and even other departments in the ministry. So therefore, I don't really think that it would only be Rotich. The PS must also be asked questions so that he would be able to tell Kenyans, as far as that deal is concerned, what is his or her role.
Okay, and of course, that's a lead story in your copy of Your People Daily. We'll now move on to page 4 of the PD. This is concerning matters Mau. State suspends evictions as MP Ngeno arrested. Nakuru County boss says move taken to allow students to sit exams and explore resettlements right there. But an interesting, if you read this article and read this story, it seems like the government is speaking from, two different scripts, or reading from two different scripts rather. On one hand, we have Nakuru County Commissioner Erastus Mboy announcing the suspension of eviction, while his boss, Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea, is saying that this is going to be happening still, but they're just giving it a bit of time first to humanely explore how they shall resettle these particular victims in the Mau right now. Speaker Lachi, once again, this is indeed and has been seen a real political hot potato, this one. A humanitarian crisis, some people have been describing it, yet on the other side we can see the degradation of the environment because of these particular acts. When the government is now exploring humane ways of moving the victims out, had the cart been put before the horse, as they said that they're going to do it in 1 week and everybody will have to move out of the forest?
Well, I think first of all, when you look at Mau, it is not I think we started like 10 years ago talking about Mau, evict people and all that. Okay, I know it is us political leaders who have really played the game to, because I think if we agreed at that time when we started talking about Mau, today we will be talking a very different story. Now, for now, while the boss will say this, I think it is important, yes, to look at the humanity of all. At the same time, really Kenyans, because we create all these problems ourselves.
Right.
One person goes somewhere, when you realize nobody is questioning, you bring in, and people move in like that. And now when it comes now to be removed, you start saying, I bought. You can't buy the forest. It was a gazetted forest, so there's no way you bought. You can only be, you were only given, but there was somewhere you came from. I hope where you came from, you never sold this land. Because, you know, we can't do double standards also.
Right.
And I think that's where the government has a challenge, because when people are removed from their personal lands in Wasingishu, during the 2008 post-election violence, nobody has ever gone back there. Where is this land? So why, and I've never understood why government should not just go there, evaluate all this land that was left by people, because it was land of people. These people have lived, some of them live now in Mawingo, in Nyandarua, some of them live in Maimahio. They've now started a new life. But they had land somewhere, those days they had bought that land. Why can government go do evaluation of that land and say, look, this land is worth this amount. We can buy this land, pay the people who owned this land, take this land, and give these people who are now coming out from Mao. You can do that. Because these other ones are wondering, you're about to give these ones land, but for us who have lived for the last 10 years, and our land has just been somewhere now, it's like trees, it's like anyone walks in, does the farming, goes out, but for us, we have no place to go. That is what will bring the conflict. Because these other ones will say, oh, so you can deal with these ones better, but for these ones who we decided to check out, like you can't deal with them better. You can't even ask how their lives are. You can't even ask at that time whether their children were supposed to be going to do exams. So that is where the challenge is in the political process of dealing with Mao and all the issues we've had on issues of land. So for me, for now, I would support, let the children do their exams. Let us have it in a way, because third term is just 2 months and they're closed. And then now you come and do it in a proper way. But also, let us have the data. And I'm hoping now we have data of all these people who are coming out from Mao. And one question should be, by the time you are coming into Mao, where was your home? Okay,
Wasira, let me bring you in on that as well. As Speaker Nachi is saying, this has been something that has played on the political stage for years. Is it just lack of political goodwill? Do people need this predicament as is for them to get political capital?
I think my take is that the whole thing about Mao, the politics has shadowed too many other dynamics that are both social, economic, and everything else. The land question and politics in this country. And the way it's being done, the government is, as usual, is being very indecisive. It does some things, and when the politics rears its ugly head, it goes back. This is a matter that was supposed to be, have been dispensed of with early in about 10 years ago. But having said that, there is an issue that the government needed to have done. Did they plan for these elections? If they did, what is the bigger picture? Because there are 4 issues to look at, there are 2 issues to look here. The bigger conservation picture, because we're talking about 60,000 people, human beings, all right, but downstream, the Mao has an effect on the whole Mara ecosystem, all the way beyond our borders. We're talking about 1 million plus other livelihoods that depend on that river and the other ecosystems that are supported by the Mao complex. The aspect that the government needed to do is, and it has always bungled the issue of resettlement. You're given land because you're politically correct. So they look at the environmental picture, while at the same time, like if they are saying about 60 days to move out, how do they follow through the 60 days to make sure that guys are moving out? After this, you can bet that Mao, after the 2 months of suspension, the kids can do exams, is going to take another trajectory, because the politics that has been infused into it. And politics in this country is about ethnicity, personalities. Why is it that we never go back to the original sinners?
And that's why I want to bring Bwana in on this one as well, because the people on this land say we did searches at the Ministry of Lands, the title deeds we have are valid, and that's why we're here. If you want to relocate us, where are we going? Yet at the same time, Natembeya spoke about the fact there were 15 individuals who had been being investigated by the DCI concerning the sale of this land. He said even some of them have since passed on. yet we don't know who these 15 individuals are and who's supposed to be brought to book, the original sinners, so to speak. Where do we start?
I think where we need to start from a legal standpoint, it would be important to remind ourselves that the Constitution guarantees each and every individual a clean and a healthy environment. And the responsibility to ensure that clean and healthy environment rests on the state. So the state should ensure and to take any appropriate measures to ensure that we protect the environment for ourselves and for future generations. But what is important, while we are trying to ensure that we protect the environment for our future generations, I watched the CS for Environment, Keriako Tobiko, saying that this exercise must go on and we must ensure that we live an environment that will be able to sustain and to support our future generations. But while we are doing that, we must also ensure that the present generation is also entitled to that safe environment. Having said that, what we really need to interrogate, because these people that didn't start living in the Mau yesterday, they have been there for some time, others 20 years, 30 years. So one thing that we must know and we must be told, who are these people that registered or leased or sold these pieces of land to these individuals? Because according to the CS, he said that out of over 4,000, around 4,200 did not have fake title deeds. 700 and some few hundreds had only sale agreements. Who gave them these sale agreements? And for these who have title deeds, who issued them with these title deeds? Was there any process behind it? And if it is so, I heard others saying that there's a part which is a trust land, there is a part that belongs to Narok County government. If that is so, because we do not know, because we have now seen this thing as acquired a political character, whereby now the politicians are really trying to make political capital out of it, and the government has also taken a position. And what these leaders are not telling us, we must really support the conservation of the environment, but we must also do it in an inhumane manner, whereby those who are there are being given an opportunity. For those who knew that they went there illegally and encroached, they are given an opportunity to leave. For those who genuinely and based on legitimate expectation that they are purchasing land that indeed will be free for them to carry out their agricultural or economic activity, the government must and should ensure they are adequately compensated. Okay, let's just leave it at that particular point. We'll be back with plenty more right here as we take a short break. As always, we'd love your feedback on the big stories of the day. You can SMS us on 21222. You can also tweet us at K24 TV. Get us on Facebook on the same handle, K24 TV. On Instagram as well at K24 TV. Speaking of the tweets, one just in from Bob Owino. Morning, Bob. Locked from Kisumu. Nothing will happen to suspended CS Rotich. In fact, he'll come back stronger politically. Also, he says he's glad to see Nairobi House Speaker British Salachi always sober on debates. On that particular one. Thanks, Bob. Keep those tweets coming in. Right here, we'll be reading plenty more after the break right here. This is the newspaper review.